Okay, just a little twist there. Almost done. And perfect. Alright, one more for the year. FromSoft and side quests go together like peanut butter and talcum powder, pepperoni pizza and a fresh pack of staples, Velcro sandals and getting laid. So as to say, any pleasure to be derived from following the progression of your average FromSoft side quest is purely coincidental, and the only two things about them that can really keep player interest are the quest rewards and the likability of the NPCs themselves. And this is not a likability list, nor is this an NPC list, so I'm just gonna be upfront with you here and now. Igon not taking the top spot has nothing to do with his likability as a character. I'm only talking about the quest itself, the items, and how easy it is to follow properly. Igon fanatics are unconditionally welcome here, I promise. Number 13, the Hornsent. This toad-skinned, Pan's Labyrinth-looking fuck needs therapy, and he needs it now. No matter what path you tread, no matter what NPCs you help or don't help, something in this guy just snaps along the way, he lets the intrusive thoughts win or something, and he suddenly just wants your ass cheeks on a wall. You can summon him versus Mesmer, you can choose not to rat him out to Leda, you can give him all the duck soup in your pocket, and his motives just won't flinch. As soon as that rune breaks, your ass is cooked and he's coming after it. Is the Falx even his quest item? Like, you get it no matter what because you can't reach the end of the DLC with him alive. Like, it is literally not scripted to happen. So is it even fair to count this weapon as part of the Hornsent quest, since the outcome just doesn't matter and I can get it by outright ignoring it? This can diverge into a whole other conversation involving sympathy for the Hornsent that didn't take part in murderizing Marika's village, something I won't branch off into because I've always treated lore as a secondary in videos like these and I see no reason to change it. But I don't know, maybe there would have been a bit more sympathy towards Marika's own genocidal sprees if his character was handled just a bit differently. Maybe the discussion surrounding those events would be morally grayer if you didn't have them be represented by a fundamentally unlikable, vengeance-fueled, dog-treat-guzzling creep that has canonically shit in his pants without changing them. Number 12, Sir Ansbach. The cooler looking and better sounding the NPC is, the shittier their quest will be to slog through, with very few exceptions. This is right up there with that other faux, unspoken rule that dictates a weapon's ugliness must be inverse to its usefulness. It's a rule that only really makes sense if you're already pissed about it, but NPCs like Sir Ansbach tend to test its validity. His questline is entirely dependent on advancing Leda's questline far enough to invade either Leda or Ansbach, and if you've triggered Mesmer's boss cutscene, then you've already cancelled yourself out of Leda's quest, and therefore Ansbach's quest as well, and no, there's no way to repair either questline and you're just fucked. The series of events that follow Ansbach is tied to incredibly high maintenance that involves the furthering of another quest that's very easy to accidentally cancel out of if you don't know what the trigger is, and the only reward here is just the ability to actually summon him during the final NPC fight in Inner Elim instead of some rando you got paired with because your MMRs coincidentally lined up or something. You help him out, his quest items are shit. You leave him for dead, his quest items are shit. It sounds like 2012 PewDiePie came up with his fucking name, and his attire can only boost Blood Oath weapon skills, the one scope of blood abilities in the entire game that probably needed the least amount of help. Number 11, Fire Knight Queelign. You need him to invade you twice, which is already not the best start for a questline because being assigned my own personal stalker isn't the best indication that I'm even advancing a questline to begin with. It never occurred to me this coconut head looking fuck would actually become important later on, so once he stopped invading, I just stopped caring. Worse yet, if you catch the invasion spot in Shadow Altus but you manage to miss the one in Bellerot by the small private altar, you'll have to go back to Bellerot just to fight him a second time to make sure he appears correctly as an NPC in Shadowkeep, which is something we in the industry like to call fucked up and stupid as hell. Don't do this. From here, you find the two irises and, oh, wonderful, you can't even get all this shit in a single playthrough. You have to choose between his sword and his spirit ash, which wouldn't be so inconvenient if one reward wasn't vastly superior to the other. One is a powerful HTS that gets a hidden benefit from Mesmer Fire Grease and his insanely good flame art scaling, and the other is a spirit ash dead set on a mission to make NPC summons look as bad as humanly possible. Maybe being a Fire Knight just isn't his calling. Granted, I'm not really sure what is. His vibe makes me feel like he could fuck up posting a chicken sandwich review on YouTube. Number 10, the Hornsent Grandma. A nice little old lady that gives you soup and then fucks right off. And somehow Pontiac Grandam is one of the few surviving NPCs that don't get caught in the ganking whirlwind that is the penultimate boss fight of this DLC. Ethiopian Grandam doesn't have a lot of useful quest rewards, like any at all, leaving very little practical reason to even so much as passively interact with her because you're bored. But Denny's Grand Slam also has a quest model that's nice and simple, easy to follow, and doesn't put up a large amount of fuss if you miss miss a couple steps. A compliment I cannot in good faith pay to most other quest lines in the DLC or the base game for that matter. As an NPC herself, Special Summon Grandam is highly likable with understandable fears towards your player character that she later admits were held in bad faith, leading me to believe if her quest line was a bit more involved and gave you items that were actually worth a shit, Rob Rose's The Grand Scam could have single-handedly offered the moral ambiguity most of the Hornsent probably needed in their lore. But sadly, she doesn't. And she won't. And no amount of pre-processed Chef Boyardee thrown in a pan is gonna fix that. Number 9, Swordhand of Knight Jolan. This questline creates a mirror problem of what we saw with Fire Knight Queelign, where the weapon you can get is mid on its best days, but the Spirit Ash will take just about anything except the final boss of the DLC and surgically remove it from the entire goddamn game. It's not really a missable questline, since unlocking Jolan's rewards hinges completely off of first finishing Ymir's quest, up to and including the 2v1 invasion at the end. The only way you could really miss it would be if you were in such a rush to leave the cathedral you just didn't even see her spawn back in. A hilariously real possibility. I'm just really not crazy about quest lines that require 2 full playthroughs of the game to properly wrap up, and if I didn't have access to the modding tools I did using this footage, I could easily see myself slowly developing a metaphorical blister of intolerance for any quest that dangles a second item above my head, daring me to play the game again. So I can only imagine how this kind of quest makes console users feel. But the Spirit Ash waiting for you at Rabath's Rise once you give her the Iris of Grace is moderately enough to make up for all the hassle. Number 8, Redmane Freyja. The character herself is cool enough. I'm glad we got the opportunity to actually see what your average Redmane knight would have looked like standing beside Radahn and the rest of his cohort, but there's just way too many little conditions you need to follow to make sure the entire questline goes off without a hitch. You need to advance Sir Ansbach's questline far enough to move him into the Shadow Keep, where he gives you the secret right scroll, but make sure you move Freyja there too after Mikola's charm breaks before you do that, or else she just won't care and disappears from the game immediately. Advance Sir Ansbach's quest up until he gives you the letter for Freyja, giving you the option to secure Freyja a nice comfortable spot in the final lineup for the big NPC fight. But you're still not safe even after receiving the Golden Lion Shield. If you decide you want her armor set early and you try to fight her, not only will this permanently lock her out of appearing in the final fight, but dying to her means she disappears for the rest of the playthrough and takes all of her shit with her, never to be seen again. Well, that's what you get for being impatient, you dopamine-deficient sperm nozzle. Number 7, Needle Knight Leda. For the purpose of video criteria, this single questline ended up being the most confusing to rank because of its strong overlap with other questlines, and how far they've advanced opens a window to argue half the rewards from Ansbach, Freyja, and the Hornsent quests could easily be included as part of Leda's quest as well. Having this much overlap with so many other questlines means needing to extend yourself into a second playthrough, possibly even a third if your confidence leads you to believe you can do everything as intended without having a wiki up on your second monitor. It takes the trophy for longest and most confusing questline with such certainty that it almost makes Ubisoft-style quest markers make sense for a couple seconds, especially since triggering Mesmer's boss cutscene can just wipe the slate clean like you never even existed to anyone. I have my own opinions regarding FromSoft quest design. I know part of the charm is to figure everything out yourself using subtle clues from dialogue and other context the game gives you, but maybe a little note on the ground telling me I was about to cock up half the quest roster if I triggered the area boss isn't too much to ask for. Number 6, Count Ymir. You know what? I approve. Didn't think I would ever admit this, but I'm actually a fan. There are plenty of things I didn't like about it. I didn't like the location of the second finger ruin being locked behind one of the stupidest guesswork-adjacent finger-up-your-ass gesture riddles ever to be concocted in Miyazaki's thinking room. The lamprey snipers pissed me off. His hat looks like an invitation to be bullied by your local college basketball team. And completing the quest means defeating one of my least favorite bosses I can even remember being in a FromSoft game. However, his questline is solid, straightforward, it doesn't get blindsided by random lockout conditions. His shop continues to expand as you make progress on the quest, opening up an excellent selection of new spells. You get his set, you get his staff, and he even drops his bell bearing so you don't have to worry about losing access to his store once you wrap up the quest. The bumps in the road are numerous and unpleasant, but at least he has enough respect for you and his bones to properly tell you where the fuck to go. Here's a map, go ring the bell. Oh, you're back? You rang the bell? Cool, here's another map. You rang that one too? Awesome, come back tomorrow morning and I'll show you the basement. Number 5, Moore. Moore has a startlingly unexpected backstory that gave me so much discomfort unearthing it that I almost thought it was a mistake. Everything from his shield ability to the color of his very armor suggests he might share an alignment with the Finger NPCs or something. So when he started talking about the Forager brood and grieving his smallpox-infested pus bucket mother, I physically recoiled like someone accidentally DM'd me a picture of their twin moons. This also gave context to all the kindred pests lying around the DLC that seemed less interested in attacking things and more interested in curling up and protecting their imaginary Yu-Gi-Oh cards from getting dirty while I stomped their faces in. There's a minor problem here though, since the pests don't all have the same amount of durability. You can whack one and observe their passivity, and unless you've never played a video game in your fucking life, a light bulb will likely go off in your head as you think, maybe I should leave this one alive for now. Maybe it's important for something else later. But that reflex doesn't have a chance to happen when you assault the one by the Church of the Crusade that's been getting by on a sliver of HP, which makes it even more confusing when I get invaded by a talking boulder with a magic shield that, on first glance, has absolutely nothing to do with anything I was just doing. But his shield is the best one in the game, you have plenty of opportunities to zero him out before he can appear in the inner Elam fight, and you can royally cock up the entire quest and still have a decent shot at receiving his best items. Now, if we can just negotiate the transparency of those lockout conditions for the black syrup, that I might even have some nicer words to say, but unless that ever changes, that's all this quest is getting. Number 4, the Dragon Priestess. Picture yourself feasting upon a dragon's essence. I mean, no need to act like you're selling me a 4090 or something. I'm already hooked. You don't need to continue. When tallying up everything about both the quest progression and the rewards themselves, it's hard to compete here. The Dragon Communion Priestess gives you the Flowerstone Gavel, one of the best anti-dragon tools that doubles as a lightning buffer for faith builds, the Priestess Heart, which just lets you live life as a dragon for a minute, boosting a set of incantations that's already busy enough getting sucked off by half the DLC, and her quest has such a transparently simple and linear progression that a fucking Ubisoft fanatic could figure out. Talk to the Priestess, dine on the finest draconic semen, kill Bale, return, collect your harvest. Done and dusted. The alternate quest ending, I can't really pay the same compliments, but at least the item description tries its best. Each night, some bullshit with the Dragon Lady happens and you should probably check it out or something. Well, fuck me, if there was only a way to control time in this shitload of fuck. Giving her Thiollier's concoction gives you arguably better rewards since you get access to her Spirit Ash and a pretty handy damage reduction incantation. There's one thing I do respect at least a little bit though, which is that they didn't pull the Irish shit that they did with Jolan or Queelign. That made it as obvious as possible that an ultimatum was being presented and you were missing out on some big reward no matter what. At least this quest tries to flare it up a bit. Number 3, Igon. If this were strictly an NPC list with NPC-centered criteria, Igon would be so far ahead of everyone else that he would have earned himself a reference in Sekiro 2. The Grand Canyon-sized chasm of quality between Igon and the entire rest of the DLC's cast is apparent as soon as he belts out his first greeting. The questline itself oozes bravado and brevity, two resources that run noticeably scarce throughout the Lands of Shadow. Everyone else either seems way too interested in communing with the local wildlife or just coming up with as many stops and breaks down the road specifically to waste your fucking time. Igon wants no part of that. He spawns in when you get rid of the second Jagged Peak Drake, tells you exactly what to do and where to find him. You say, yes sir, he says okay, and guess where you find him next? Right where he goddamn said he would be. That's some of the best logical quest progression in the business, and it only took 2 steps. Take my finger, kill the dragon, done. Nothing else required. The quest items are dog ass, by the way. They're absolute shit. An armor set, a great bow that's only good because it helps take out some of the DLC's most annoying boss fights, and a lifetime supply of dragon harpoons to facilitate said killing. That's it. That's all you're getting. Yeah, all the good dragon shit got locked behind the Priestess quest. Take that up with them, not me. Number 2, Dryleaf Dane. Shit. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't know the game actually counted him as a boss. Add that to the list of things I fucked up on that video. Dryleaf Dane doesn't speak, but I imagine him to have a voice somewhat reminiscent of an old Gears of War side character. You know, that distinct Kratos-sounding gravelly tone you get when you're eating soup and you accidentally inhaled a spoon. I'm even hesitant to call this a side quest because it's only really a side quest in the same way that finding a quarter on the ground is a side quest. It doesn't hinge on the importance of anything else you're doing, and it certainly won't add anything useful to your day, but fuck it, just found a quarter. Just kick the shit out of his ass, that's the whole quest. Do it and you even get his Dryleaf Arts weapon, and a nifty little hat you can use as a conversation starter at social events. Complete this part of the quest and he fucks off and doesn't bother you again until the inner Elam mosh pit. Nice, simple, to the point, leaves my ass alone, perfect 5 stars, moving on. Number 1. Thiollier. This quest doesn't have the best rewards, but it's able to be followed with common sense in a way that doesn't make it overly complicated. A delicate balance these games have spent over a decade struggling with. Not only does this NPC have you going halfway across the map to tie up loose ends while having a decent payoff at the finish line, but the quest also progresses in a way that makes sense. If you haven't interacted with Moor in any significant way, and you nail a passive rot pest and then suddenly get invaded by a cinder block, you're gonna get very confused. But if you had a chat with Thiollier after the rune broke, then head all the way to the stone coffin and find Saint Trina, you won't need a wiki to help you make the connection that, oh, Thiollier might be interested in this. And that's exactly how things advance. I am, however, a fan of the rule of threes. I think imbibing the nectar thrice and then still having nothing happen is where most people would just not continue and assume they're doing something wrong. An incredibly minor nitpick, but it's not like you're losing anything by drinking the piss an incorrect amount of times or anything, so it's not a huge deal, I guess. Doing the quest to completion also means you unlock a second ally for the Ymir Elam gank, and the concoction he sells can even double as a nice farming tool for enemy groups that are closer to a stake of Marika than a site of grace. Stock up on 30 of these at once, and now fishing for blood fiend weapons in the Rivermouth Cave becomes a cinch. It's an incredibly small use, but this is one of the only items I can think of with an obvious quest-related use that also has practical benefits. So, hats off to the simp with the mask, I guess. Congratulations.
Satisfied?